Warning! These reactions use extremely strong, potentially explosive oxidizers, and one will produce deadly hydrogen sulfide gas. These extractions are dangerous, inefficient, and done for only entertainment and educational purposes only. Do not repeat what you see here. I don't even want to do these again. Furthermore, if you were to repeat these, the particle size of the reactants would almost certainly be different to what I'm using, thus completely changing the speed of the reaction. Well, with that out of the way, alright everyone, welcome back to Code. Welcome to the third episode of the Exotic Thermite Series. In this episode, we kick the difficulty up another notch and explore thermites that need a little extra TLC to go to completion. We will be doing multiple extractions on vanadium, titanium, and zirconium, as well as looking at 2 ways to extract silicon from sand. So, starting with the easiest first, we'll try our hand at vanadium. Vanadium pentoxide is a very important but very toxic compound of vanadium that finds uses almost everywhere from, as usual, a ceramic pigment, to an intermediate compound on the way to purifying vanadium from its ores, to a precursor to organic chemistry catalysts. Now, I originally intended to only do 2 extractions, but ultimately did 3 for reasons I'll explain shortly. So, starting with a stoichiometric ratio of 2.02 to 1 and 480 grams of the oxide for each, we get formulas like you see here. The one on the left uses slightly less flux than the other, as by my previous calculations that was the crossover point from metal extraction to crystal formation. Ideally, one will have a blob of metal in it, while the other should have large black crystals growing in the voids of the slag. Let's find out if it worked. Well, whoa. What the hell is that? And here is the second one with 30% flux. After this, we'll break them both open and see what happened. That made a mess. Holy shit. That is white hot. Is that too hot? Yeah, it's probably too hot. Now that they're both cooled off, let's see what might have been extracted or might have been grown inside. The first one, to my surprise, worked exceptionally well with gray metal separation, in total extracting 232 grams of vanadium metal. In the past, actually, I've had trouble getting the metal to separate from the slag, but I guess I did something right this time around. Breaking open the second one in hopes of a geode revealed more metal instead. 248 grams, in fact. Not a loss at all, though, we'll just need to do another one. Let's do that now. So, for our third vanadium extraction and second geode attempt, here's the formula I used. Really all that changed is the amount of flux up to 40% from 30%. So let's see if this one works. Just by looking at the slag as it cools, I can tell we didn't have a complete reduction, but that's exactly what we want for this one. And I did say there was one more geode to try to make, but there is a lot more to get to in this episode, so we'll save those for last. So, moving up the ladder in difficulty, next is titanium dioxide, an extremely useful oxide that's used everywhere. Paint, glaze, food coloring, makeup, anti-caking additive, the list goes on. So for being a difficult to refine refractory oxide, it is, believe it or not, relatively inexpensive. The only problem is that it's a refractory oxide, meaning that the calculated 2.22 to 1 stoichiometric ratio isn't enough to reduce it to metal, instead ending up as a mixed reduced oxide. We're going to have to try something different this time, something much more dangerous than regular thermite. We're going to have to chemically add oxygen to the mix, which is about as safe as it sounds. I'd like to take a second to thank the guy who runs AmazingRust.com for providing a working formula for these boosted reactions. His formula uses potassium chlorate along with extra aluminum to provide the heat necessary to reduce to metal. I ended up swapping the potassium chlorate for potassium perchlorate, which, while stronger, is ultimately less friction and shock sensitive. Perchlorate is the oxidizer used to make flash powders, so some serious caution is needed moving forward. After plenty of small-scale tests, we can go full-scale. Here is the formula I used, although I did more fine-tuning on subsequent large-scale tests. Based on 1,200 grams of oxide, we can figure out what else we need, listed here, totaling almost 7.5 pounds. Care must be taken to remove all lumps from ingredients prior to mixing, and make sure the aluminum is mixed in with the oxide and flux before the perchlorate is mixed in. Ziploc bags didn't quite cut it for this one, so I had to mix it with a garbage bag. Well, let's take it outside and get very far away. Let me back this up a little. Maybe this will get rid of some of the dandelions. Alright. Holy shit. Good god damn. Most of that's just potassium chloride. Holy. Oh, look at that. It did get rid of some of the dandelions. How about that? After doing some thermal weed removal, we can break it open, but unfortunately, because of the burst that occurred, the entire mass didn't have enough time to cool down and properly separate from the slag, most of which was thrown out of the pot, as you could probably tell. Not to worry though, as the components are cheap enough as that we can just try it again, but this time we'll do an extraction of zirconium dioxide using the same formula along with the titanium. So let's do that. Zirconium dioxide is a white refractory oxide that has, like titanium dioxide, many different uses over many industries, finding use as an abrasive to a pigment or glaze, to use in ceramics or piezoelectrics. The formula for these two are the same for both, however, the formula was updated from 47 parts of flux to 61 parts of flux in ratio, and scaled up accordingly. Let's see what happens. Alright. Seemed to work fine to me, so let's break them open and find out. The titanium this time managed to separate from the slag and formed some very interesting colorations on the inside. The total weight extracted for the titanium is 96 grams, so not a very efficient process. The sparks you saw during the reaction was all the potential metal being thrown out of the pot. The zirconium, on the other hand, well, it extracted for sure, but why it extracted the way it did, I have no idea. According to Amazing Rust, when he had a sample of the titanium he extracted using the same formula analyzed for purity, it came back that there was a large percentage of aluminum with the titanium. So is this what pure zirconium crystals or crystals of some zirconium aluminum alloy look like? Either way, it's impressive, I think. Coming in surprisingly light at 42 grams, the yield for this formula isn't very high at all. Because I originally bought 5 pounds of the zirconium oxide, there was a lot left over after the last reaction, and because I want to see if it'll grow the same type of crystals again, let's do another. This one uses the same formula as the last one, but I scaled it up from 456 grams of the oxide to 1,000 grams. Let's mix it up and take it outside. Perfect. It's a lot of potassium chloride. Wow. Now that was impressive, and it looks like the addition of the extra flux to the mix helped hold at least some of it in the pot. Now let's see what we got inside. And it looks like we had more metal aggregate and crystal growth in the same fashion as the others, totaling 85 grams. Interesting for sure, but I'm still not sure why this is doing this. So because there is some zirconium oxide left, let's do one more on a slightly smaller scale using the same formula as the last one. Here's the formula. Let's take it outside. And it looks like we have the same type of crystal formation again, albeit on a smaller scale. The third extraction yielded 53 grams, and if it wasn't obvious by now, these extractive methods are not efficient at all. Anyway, let's move on, but not very far, to the next oxide on our list, silicon dioxide, or more commonly, sand. It may be obvious, but silicon dioxide finds countless uses, taken right off the beach or purified into silica or quartz. Abrasives, flux, water-absorbing silica gels, cement, glass, and even the fumed silica that I add to all of my reactions as anti-cake. Now, the reason this oxide is in this episode is because, like titanium and zirconium, it doesn't reduce to metal by a simple 1.67 to 1 stoichiometric ratio, instead needing its own formula also similar to the titanium and zirconium. Once again on his website, Amazing Rust provides a formula that is unique to silicon. Technically, he provides two equations for two methods, one with chlorate and one with sulfur, but let's do the sulfur one first. So for our first extraction, we're going to need silicon dioxide, aluminum, and sulfur in a 9 to 10 to 12 ratio. Starting with 900 grams of silica to make it easy, and working the rest out from there gets us our complete formula totaling 3,100 grams, or over 6 3/4 pounds. Two quick things. This formula uses a lot of sulfur, and by extension will produce a lot of hydrogen sulfide. I'm doing this reaction far away from people or animals to avoid having someone downwind catch the cloud. It was also very windy the day I performed this one, so most of the gases dissipated very quickly. Now let's get started. Look at that. Lava. Once the ethereal blue flame dies down and cools slightly, we'll have a mixture of silicon metal, aluminum oxide, and aluminum sulfide, which will react with moisture to make deadly hydrogen sulfide and less deadly aluminum oxide. You may have figured out the use for the bucket of water already, but for those that haven't, now we just stay far away and wait. Once most of the aluminum sulfide has reacted, we'll be able to decant the oxides from the blob of silicon that formed in the center. A few washes with water, and then a few washes with dilute hydrochloric acid will get something like this. Coming in at 166 grams, as you'll see, this one of the two methods is more efficient, but potentially more dangerous. Moving on to the second method and expanding on the amazing rust formula, we'll get a formula like shown here. Starting with 534 grams of silica, the rest works out to give a total of 1,814 grams or 4 pounds. The flux ratio, while not comparable, was 18% by total weight. Let's take it outside. Here it goes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this worked. That is hot. Breaking it open reveals a successful extraction. However, it has a yield comparable to the zirconium, only managing to recover 80 grams of much less pure silicon. Only an acid wash is necessary to clean up after this method because of the lack of sulfur. Well, it looks like everything is taken care of except for one vanadium geode attempt. So let's finish this up. In the final attempt, we're going to reduce the flux from 40% to 35%, as that seems like the sweet spot to shoot for. Here's what the formula works out for, starting with 457 grams of oxide and totaling 1,049 grams or 2 1/4 pounds. I'll include better shots afterwards of all geode attempts so far. like we're at the end of the episode. In the next episode, we'll be kicking up the difficulty another notch and attempting extractions on extremely energetic oxides like molybdenum and copper, as well as attempting alloys like bronze, brass, and ferromolybdenum. So until then, I'll catch you later, world. It's been a lot of fun. Oh, wait a minute.